He bought an $11 hangar expecting scrap. What guarded the ancient warship was terrifying. Life had never given him much: small apartments, second-hand tools, and odd jobs that barely paid the bills. Still, he had one thing other people envied: his curiosity. Elias could see potential where others only saw rust. It was that curiosity that led him to an online auction one quiet Thursday evening. On the screen, a single hangar tucked away on the edge of an old industrial district was up for sale. The description was simple: abandoned hangar, lot includes debris. All sales final, that was it. No photographs, no history, no warning, and the starting price, $11. Elias laughed at the absurdity. $11. Most people wouldn't even take a look at such a place, but Elias liked abandoned hangars. They were full of secrets, and secrets could be worth a fortune. Without thinking twice, he clicked the buy button. The next morning, he drove his old van across the city, weaving past cracked roads and rusting fences until the hangar came into view. The building was smaller than he expected, and its metal siding was dented and peeling. A heavy padlock hung from the doors, rusted from years of neglect. Elias smiled. "This is it," he said to himself. $11 well spent. With some effort, he broke the lock open. The hinges creaked loudly as the doors swung wide, revealing the interior. Dust floated in the sunlight, and the smell of old metal and oil filled the air. Broken pallets, rusted barrels, and scattered pieces of machinery littered the floor. Elias felt the familiar thrill of discovery pulse through him. He stepped inside, scanning every corner. Most of the hangar was empty, except for a large, shadowed shape at the far end. At first, he thought it was just a pile of scrap, covered in a tarp. But as he moved closer, he realized it was something else entirely. It was huge. Taller than any building he had ever worked in, its shape stretched across the hangar like a sleeping giant. Its surface was smooth, metallic, and strangely flawless, considering the years it must have been abandoned. A faint glow pulsed from beneath panels along its hull, like the heartbeat of something alive. Elias froze. Is this real?" he whispered. He circled it slowly, every step stirring the dust beneath his boots. The ship seemed impossibly large, with wings folded tightly against its sides and a sleek, pointed nose that suggested speed and power. Strange symbols covered its surface, symbols Elias didn't recognize. They weren't any language he had ever seen, and yet somehow they felt familiar, as if they belonged to a story buried deep in human memory. Elias' heart raced. He had expected scraps, old engines perhaps, or broken machinery he could sell for parts. But this was something else, something extraordinary. He crouched and ran his hand along the hull. The metal was cold, almost alive, vibrating faintly under his touch. A panel slid open silently at his touch, revealing a small, dark cockpit. Inside, controls and screens blinked faintly, powered by some internal system he could not identify. "Okay," he murmured, trying to calm his racing thoughts. This is more than scrap. This is something else." He spent the next few hours exploring the hangar, moving slowly and carefully around the ship. Every tool he had seemed primitive compared to the craft before him. Yet, Elias noticed that some of the panels could be opened with basic hand movements. They didn't resist him, they almost invited him. Curiosity turned to obsession. Elias had always dreamed of finding something valuable, something that could change his life. But this wasn't just valuable, it was history. It was proof that humans were capable of more than the world remembered. Or perhaps it was proof that someone else had once watched humans and feared what they could become. As the sun began to set outside, casting long shadows across the hangar, Elias found himself inside the cockpit. He pressed a few buttons randomly. Nothing dangerous happened. Small lights blinked on the screens, patterns forming that he could not understand, yet somehow felt intuitive. Then came a sound, a low hum that seemed to resonate with the ship itself. Elias froze. It wasn't loud, but it was deep, vibrating through the floor, the walls, even his chest. It felt like the ship was waking up, sensing him. "What are you?" he whispered aloud. No answer came, and yet, for the first time, Elias felt as if he was not alone. He stepped back from the cockpit, suddenly aware of the shadows stretching across the hangar. Somewhere deep within the ship, something moved. It wasn't fast, it wasn't threatening, but it was deliberate, intelligent. Elias' mind raced. He had read stories, seen movies about ancient warships, alien technology, forgotten fleets of the past. He had never imagined he would find one in his lifetime, let alone for $11. He spent the rest of the evening examining the hull, discovering hatches that opened with strange, precise mechanisms, lights that pulsed as if responding to his presence, and symbols that seemed to glow faintly when he touched them. The ship was alive in a way that defied explanation. By the time night fell, Elias had set up a small lamp and a makeshift workbench inside the hangar. He was determined to learn as much as he could about the ship before anyone else discovered it, or before he did something wrong and triggered some ancient defense system. He ate a quick dinner from a can of beans, sitting on the edge of a rusted crate, staring at the vessel. Every instinct screamed at him to leave it alone, but every ounce of curiosity demanded he stay. He spent hours drawing sketches of the symbols, making notes about the panels, the pulsing lights, and the hum that never truly stopped. Every discovery seemed to unlock another question. Who built this? Why was it here? And most importantly, why did it seem to recognize him? Just before he decided to rest, Elias noticed something in the corner of his eye. A shadow moved across the wall, not a shadow of his own, but something larger, heavier. He turned slowly, and there it was, a massive silhouette, tall and intimidating, standing silently near the far end of the hangar. Elias froze. It was alive, at least not like a human. Its surface gleamed faintly in the dim light, metallic plates forming a shape that was humanoid, yet far larger, far stronger. Its eyes, or what he assumed were eyes, glowed faint red. It was clearly some kind of guardian, a defense system for the ship, but it didn't move toward him. It simply observed. Elias swallowed hard. He had expected treasure, but not a sentinel, not something ancient, intelligent, and terrifying. He held up his hand slowly. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said softly. "I just want to understand." The guardian tilted its head, or what passed for a head. The hum from the ship grew louder, almost as if it approved of his words. Elias' heart pounded, but he didn't step back. This hangar, this ship, and now this guardian, everything was beyond anything he had imagined. Yet he felt a spark of hope. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just surviving. He was part of something extraordinary. And as he sat there, staring at the massive sentinel and the glowing hull of the ancient warship, Elias knew that life would never be the same again. $11 had bought him more than he could have ever dreamed. He had bought a secret. And the secret was watching him. Elias Quinn could not sleep. He sat on the edge of an old crate, staring at the glowing hull of the ancient warship. Outside, the city lights were distant and dim, but inside the hangar the air seemed alive. The hum from the ship pulsed gently, vibrating under his feet, through his chair, and even through his chest. And then there was the Guardian. It stood at the far end of the hangar, silent and unmoving. Its red eyes, or sensors, Elias corrected himself, glowed faintly in the dim light. It was huge, taller than any human he had ever seen, with angular limbs and a frame that suggested strength beyond imagination. But it didn't attack. It didn't move. It only watched. Elias swallowed hard. He had read about defense systems in old manuals and sci-fi books, but nothing prepared him for the feeling of a machine that could think. Every instinct in him screamed caution, but curiosity, his constant companion, was stronger. He took a deep breath and stepped forward. I don't know if you understand me," he said, his voice echoing slightly in the empty hangar. "I'm not here to harm the ship. I just want to learn." The Guardian tilted its head slightly, a movement so slow and deliberate that Elias wondered if he had imagined it. He waited, his eyes locked on the glowing red sensors. The hum from the ship grew slightly louder, almost as if it were acknowledging him. Elias realized he was holding his breath. Slowly, he lowered his hands and moved a little closer, careful not to make sudden gestures. He noticed the Guardian's limbs were jointed differently than a human's, with extra segments and hidden mechanisms. It was built for strength and precision, yet it seemed curious. He knelt on one knee, keeping his movements slow and deliberate. "I'm Elias Quinn," he said. I found this ship. I don't know who built it, but I want to understand it. Please, I mean no harm." For a long minute the Guardian remained still. Then, without warning, it stepped forward. The sound of its metal feet scraping the hangar floor made Elias jump, but the movement was not aggressive. Instead, the Guardian stopped a few meters away, its red sensors focusing on him like eyes trying to understand a stranger. Elias' heart pounded, but he forced himself to stay calm. "I think you're a Guardian," he said slowly, testing the waters. "You protect this ship, don't you?" The Guardian made no sound. Its head, or what Elias thought was a head, tilted again. Then slowly it extended one of its massive hands. Elias froze, expecting a strike or some sign of attack, but the hand didn't come toward him threateningly. It hovered, mechanical fingers flexing slightly, as if waiting. Elias took a tentative step forward. "You want me to do something?" he asked. He didn't expect an answer, and yet, after a long pause, a panel on the ship's hull slid open. A soft blue light poured out, illuminating the Guardian and the hangar floor. It was a gesture, an invitation. Elias felt a thrill run through him. He had read about ancient warships with automated defenses, but he had never imagined a system could recognize intelligence or curiosity. This wasn't just a machine guarding a ship. It was judging him, testing him. He stepped closer to the glowing panel, keeping his hands visible. The Guardian followed, its movements slow and careful. Elias studied the symbols etched along the ship's hull. They seemed to glow faintly when he touched them. Each symbol was intricate, almost like a star map combined with a language. Elias traced a pattern with his finger. The lights pulsed faster, responding to his touch. The Guardian remained nearby, observing silently. Elias realized something incredible. The ship, or perhaps the Guardian, was responding not to force but to thought, to cleverness. He pulled a small notebook from his backpack and began sketching the symbols, writing down what he observed. Every line, every glow, every reaction mattered. He experimented with different touches, different orders and patterns. The ship's lights danced in response, and the Guardian shifted its stance, almost approvingly. Hours passed like minutes. Elias lost track of time as he tested, observed, and learned. He discovered that certain symbols could activate lights on different parts of the ship. Others seemed to trigger tiny movements within the hull, almost like mechanical whispers. And all the while the Guardian watched, never leaving, never attacking, just observing. At one point, Elias felt a thrill of triumph. He had figured out a small mechanism that caused the ship to extend a landing ramp. A beam of blue light shot down, illuminating the hangar floor. He grinned, heart racing. The Guardian stepped back slightly, giving him space. Elias realized it recognized his achievement. It wasn't just a machine. It was an intelligent observer, a test of his creativity and patience. And he was passing. For the first time, Elias felt something more than curiosity, pride. Humans had always been underestimated, and here he was, alone in a hangar, impressing a machine built centuries, or even millennia before him. But the excitement was mixed with fear. He knew he was being watched for a reason. One wrong move could trigger a defense mechanism he couldn't predict. The ship was alive in a way humans had never created, and the Guardian, it was not forgiving. Elias decided to test something more daring. He reached toward the cockpit, fingers hovering over the main controls. The Guardian stiffened slightly but didn't move to stop him. The hum from the ship grew louder. Lights pulsed, showing patterns he could not understand. He pressed a single button. A soft vibration ran through the floor. A holographic display flickered to life in the cockpit, showing a three-dimensional map of stars, planets, and symbols he didn't recognize. Elia's mouth fell open. This is incredible," he whispered. He leaned closer, studying the display. It wasn't just a ship. It was a map, a record, a story of journeys, battles, and discoveries. The Guardian remained silent, but Elias felt its attention like a weight on his shoulders. Every movement he made was being judged, every decision analyzed. It was a test of intelligence, creativity, and perhaps, he dared to think, morality. Hours turned into night, and the hangar became quiet except for the hum and occasional mechanical whir of the Guardian. Elias was exhausted, but he couldn't stop. He sketched, touched symbols, and experimented with lights and panels. Each discovery built on the last, slowly teaching him the language of the ship. At one point, he leaned back and laughed softly, shaking his head in disbelief. "All this for $11, he said. "Who would believe it?" The Guardian stepped closer, as if acknowledging his humor. Elias realized it wasn't hostile. It didn't want to hurt him. It wanted to see if he could understand, if he could think like a human who could solve impossible problems. Elias settled in a corner of the hangar, notebook in hand, and began recording everything. The ship hummed, lights dancing across the walls, and the Guardian remained nearby, silent, powerful, and strangely protective. He knew this was just the beginning. The real challenge and the real discovery was yet to come. But for the first time in his life, Elias felt something he had never felt before: hope. Curiosity had brought him here, but skill, patience, and human ingenuity were keeping him alive. And he had a feeling that the Guardian and the ship were only just starting to test him. For all its size and power, the Guardian had one weakness humans had always had. It couldn't predict creativity, and Elias Quinn was nothing if not unpredictable. The hangar was no longer just a building filled with dust. It was a classroom, a testing ground, a gateway to something greater than he could imagine. And as he stared at the glowing hull of the ancient warship, he knew that humanity, small, clever, stubborn humanity, had a chance to shine, even in the face of machines built to outthink them. For now the Guardian watched, the ship hummed, and Elias Quinn learned. And the adventure had only just begun. Elias Quinn had learned more in the past night than in years of scavenging hangars. The ancient warship was no ordinary relic. It was alive in ways he could barely understand. Its systems hummed in response to his touch, its lights pulsed like a heartbeat, and the Guardian stood silently nearby, observing his every move. Yet Elias knew the real challenge was just beginning. Activating a panel here and there had given him small victories, but the ship's true power remained dormant. He had to find the core, the place where all the systems connected. That was where he would understand the ship, awaken it, and prove that humans could master what even advanced machines could not. He studied the cockpit, taking in every symbol, every glowing panel, and every strange control. The holographic star map was still active, rotating slowly, revealing paths that Elias could not recognize. He traced the constellations with his fingers, feeling the subtle vibrations under his touch. "All right," he whispered, "let's see what you really are." Elias remembered a small pattern he had noticed earlier, a sequence of symbols that pulsed in a steady rhythm, almost like a code. He tapped them in the order he had sketched in his notebook. The ship responded immediately. Panels shifted, hidden compartments opened, and the hum of the ship grew louder. The Guardian shifted slightly, moving to stand beside Elias rather than across from him. It was no longer just observing, it seemed to be assisting, watching him with a kind of mechanical respect. Elias realized that this was not a mindless machine. It was intelligent, adaptive, and perhaps even capable of judgment. With careful fingers, He adjusted a lever near the main control console. A low rumble reverberated through the hangar, making dust and loose tools vibrate. The ship shuddered slightly, as if stretching after centuries of inactivity. Elia's heart raced. He was awakening something vast, something powerful, and he alone was guiding it back to life. The cockpit lights brightened, and a holographic interface expanded before him. It was more complex than anything Elias had ever seen. Stars, lines, and symbols danced across the display, forming networks and pathways that seemed to tell a story. Elias could not read the alien symbols, but he could sense patterns, logical connections, sequences, and reactions that responded to his every input. "This is incredible," he murmured. "It's like it's alive, like it's thinking." The Guardian stepped closer to a panel on the side of the ship and extended a mechanical arm. Elias watched as it pointed to a specific set of symbols. It was offering guidance, showing him a sequence to try. Elias hesitated for a moment, then followed. He tapped the symbols in the order the Guardian indicated. The ship shivered again, and a part of its hull slid open to reveal a glowing core. Light spilled into the hangar, bathing Elias in a soft blue glow. He stepped closer, awestruck. This was the heart of the warship, pulsing with energy he could feel in his chest. Elias took a deep breath. "Okay," he whispered. "Time to see what you can do." He reached for the core, tentatively touching the glowing surface. The ship responded immediately, sending waves of energy through its systems. The holographic star map expanded, showing galaxies, stars, and planets far beyond human charts. Lines of energy traced paths across the map, highlighting areas that seemed to hold history, battles, explorations, lost colonies. Elias realized something astonishing. This ship had traveled farther and fought harder than any human vessel ever could. And yet here it was, waiting for someone clever enough to understand it. The Guardian moved closer, its red sensors focusing on Elias. It did not move aggressively, but Elias could feel its power, its ability to destroy him in an instant. And yet, it had chosen not to. It recognized something in him, humanity, creativity, and ingenuity, that no machine could predict. Elias began experimenting with the controls, activating small systems and watching the ship respond. Lights traced the hull, panels shifted, and subtle mechanical sounds echoed through the hangar. The warship was waking up, and every action he took seemed to guide it further. Hours passed like minutes. Elias barely noticed the time, lost in the wonder of discovery. He realized that the ship was not just a machine, it was a record, a living history of human achievement, and somehow it trusted him. Then a new sound echoed through the hangar, a soft, melodic hum that was not from the ship. Elias froze, heart pounding. The Guardian's sensors glowed brighter, and it moved to stand between him and the source of the sound. From the shadows, a small drone emerged. It was unlike the Guardian, smaller, faster, and more delicate, but its purpose was clear. It had been monitoring the ship and Elias' actions. The drone approached the core, scanning the symbols and controls, then paused. Its sensors locked on Elias, analyzing him. Elias held his hands up. "I mean no harm," he said quietly. The drone tilted slightly, then emitted a soft chirping sound. The Guardian relaxed its stance slightly. Elias realized that every system of this ship, every machine, was connected. They were all observing him, testing him, waiting to see if a human could awaken what even ancient intelligence considered too complex. He smiled, adrenaline surging. "You don't know humans," he said softly. "We can be clever. We can adapt. We can figure things out." He returned to the core, carefully tracing sequences on the panels. The ship's systems pulsed, reacting to his ingenuity rather than brute force. He experimented, made small mistakes, and learned from them. Each success caused the ship to respond more fully, its systems coming alive with an almost musical rhythm. By morning, the ship's hum had grown into a steady, powerful resonance. Panels along its wings shifted, small engines spun gently, and the cockpit's displays showed a full galactic chart, highlighting destinations humans had never seen. Elias had done it. He had awakened the warship. The Guardian stepped back, giving him space, and the small drone hovered near the core. Elias realized they were no longer just guardians. They were allies, guiding him, testing him, and acknowledging his intelligence. He leaned back in the cockpit chair, exhausted but exhilarated. The hangar was no longer just a place of dust and forgotten metal. It was alive with energy, history, and possibility. And he, Elias Quinn, had proven that humans could awaken what even advanced technology could not. For the first time in centuries, the ancient warship had a pilot it could trust, a human. Elias looked at the Guardian, then at the glowing core. "We're just getting started," he said with a grin. "Let's see what humans can really do." And for the first time, the warship responded not with lights or hums, but with movement. Its massive hull shifted slightly, engines spinning gently, as if stretching after centuries of rest. The hangar vibrated with energy, and Elias felt it in his bones. The Guardian's red sensors glowed softly, almost like approval. The drone hovered nearby, chirping in a sequence that seemed like laughter. Elias realized something incredible. He was not just awakening a ship. He was awakening a legacy, the human legacy. And the universe, vast and unknowable, was about to take notice. Elias Quinn felt the hum of the ancient warship under his feet, pulsing like a living thing. The cockpit glowed softly around him, illuminating panels and holographic star charts that stretched across the vastness of space, or at least, the ship's memory of it. He had spent nights learning, experimenting, and proving himself to the Guardian and the drone. Now everything was ready. The hangar no longer felt empty. The massive ship had shifted slightly, engines spinning, panels stretching like wings testing the air. The Guardian stood near the far wall, its sensors glowing faintly red, and the small drone hovered close to the core, chirping softly in what Elias guessed was approval. He leaned back in the pilot chair, fingers brushing over the controls. "I think we're ready," he said, voice steady despite the excitement. "Let's see what humans can do." A low vibration ran through the hull, a response from the ship itself. It felt alive, aware, as if it recognized him not just as a pilot but as a human, an unpredictable, creative, and clever species capable of problem-solving that machines could not anticipate. Elias smiled. "I guess that makes me extraordinary," he whispered. He tapped a sequence on the control panel and the ship responded immediately. Lights traced the edges of the hull, engines thrummed louder, and the hangar shook slightly with power. The Guardian moved closer, standing tall and imposing, but it did not obstruct him. Elias realized that it was no longer a sentinel, it was a companion. The ancient warship had recognized him as worthy, and the Guardian had acknowledged his humanity. He glanced at the star chart. Thousands of stars and planets were displayed, some familiar, many unknown. Lines traced paths of exploration, battles, and discoveries long forgotten by human history. Elias traced his finger along one of the paths. Somewhere out there, the ship had been used, humans, or perhaps humans before humans, had flown among the stars, and now it was his turn. Elias pressed a lever that seemed to activate the engines fully. The hum grew into a steady roar, vibrating the hangar floor. Panels along the hull shifted, small wings extending slightly, and the lights along the ship's surface pulsed in a rhythm like a heartbeat. The hangar doors had been unlocked, but they had never fully opened. With a loud creak, they slid upward, revealing the sky beyond, stars glittering faintly in the early morning light, city lights below, and the horizon stretching endlessly. The ship seemed eager, as if it too wanted to leave the hangar behind. Elias took a deep breath and activated the final control sequence. The engines glowed brighter, and a soft vibration lifted him off the floor. Slowly at first, then faster, the ship rose, hovering above the hangar. Dust swirled around the building as the massive craft cleared the roof, engines thrumming powerfully. He looked down at the city below, small and insignificant compared to the warship. But he did not feel fear. He felt pride. Humanity had been underestimated for centuries, dismissed as fragile, clever only in small ways. Yet here he was, piloting a vessel built by humans, guarded by machines designed to test them, and proving that even the oldest technology could not outmatch human ingenuity. Elias tapped the controls, experimenting. The ship responded instantly, shifting effortlessly, turning, hovering with perfect balance. He grinned. "Not bad for an $11 hangar," he said softly. The Guardian's sensors glowed and it moved alongside the ship as it hovered. Elias realized it was guiding him, a companion and protector. The small drone zipped around, analyzing and recording everything, chirping occasionally. Together they formed a team, human and machine, past and present. He began testing the ship's movement, hovering above the city before rising higher and higher. The hum of the engines filled the air, a sound of awakening and triumph. And then he pressed another sequence, a jump into space, a light-speed leap recorded in the ship's memory. The stars outside seemed to stretch, glowing lines racing past him. The warship responded perfectly, engines adjusting, lights dancing across the hull. Elias' heart pounded. He had never experienced anything like this. The ship was alive, aware, and he was part of it. Humanity had done what the universe did not expect. The ingenuity, curiosity, and adaptability that defined humans had allowed him to awaken something ancient and powerful. He glanced at the Guardian. The massive sentinel floated beside the ship, perfectly balanced, its sensors glowing softly. Elias realized it trusted him now. It knew he would not misuse the ship, that humans could be clever without being reckless. And the small drone circled him, chirping in sequences he now understood as patterns, almost like laughter. Elias laughed softly in return. "We're quite the team," he said. The star map in front of him showed countless paths. Some led to planets teeming with life, others to barren worlds long abandoned. Elias touched a path leading to a star cluster unknown to human records. The ship responded immediately, engines humming in agreement. The journey had begun. As he guided the warship into open space, Elias realized how extraordinary this moment was. Humanity had been underestimated by every civilization, every machine, every observer in the universe. And yet here he was, proving that cleverness, creativity, and adaptability could outmatch even the most advanced constructs. The hangar was now far below, a tiny structure among millions. The city lights flickered like stars, but Elias no longer belonged there. He was among the stars now, guiding a ship that had been asleep for centuries, awakened by a human mind. He took a deep breath, feeling the hum of the engines through his body. He looked ahead at the vast expanse of space, endless and unknowable. There were mysteries to discover, civilizations to learn from, and paths to chart that no human had ever seen. For the first time, Elias felt the weight of history and the thrill of the future at once. Humanity had not only survived, it had the ability to thrive in ways the universe could not predict. And this ship, once forgotten and abandoned, would carry that proof into the stars. He tapped the controls again, and the ship shifted smoothly, turning toward a distant nebula. The lights along the hull pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. The Guardian floated beside him, steady and reassuring. The drone zipped around, recording, observing, and communicating in ways Elias was beginning to understand. Elias leaned back in the pilot chair and smiled. "This is just the beginning," he said softly. "The universe doesn't know what's coming." The warship hummed louder, engines glowing brighter, and the stars outside stretched endlessly. Elias realized he was not just a pilot, he was the representative of humanity. And humanity, clever, stubborn, unpredictable humanity, was about to make its mark. He pressed another button, engaging the full power of the ship's engines. The stars outside streaked into lines of light as the warship leapt into the vast unknown. The hum of the engines and the ship's glowing lights created a rhythm that matched the pulse of his own heart. Elias looked at the Guardian and the drone. "We're in this together," he said. "Let's see what humans can really do." The universe stretched before him, infinite and mysterious. The hangar, the city, the earth, it all seemed small now. Yet Elias knew one thing with certainty: the ingenuity, creativity, and courage of humans could conquer the unknown. And with that thought, Elias Quinn guided the ancient warship into the stars, proving to the universe that humans, tiny, clever, stubborn humans, were forces to be reckoned with. For the first time, the hum of the ship was not just a sound. It was a declaration. Humanity had awakened, and it was ready. The adventure had only just begun.